I have in my collective knowledge some really good stories to illustrate how an adept, how a magician works with different spirits and allegorical initiation stories. I also have within the collective pool of my knowledge a number of stories that are chilling and just as dark as you can get because of the implications. And one of them happens to come from Italy, and I really believe that this was a story based on perhaps the group that began the Bavarian Illuminati. So this is the Bavarian chapter. And there's a lot of misinformation and unconfirmed stories about that group that I don't want to get into right now, because the real point is there is a dark adept, you'd call him a necromancer, who is walking with his young student, and this young student has a dog who has just had a litter of puppies. And this dog wasn't exactly very nice to his young apprentice. And the master says, if your dog brings you one of her puppies, you may beat her with sticks, hit her with stones, and even stomp her puppies in front of her, and she will forever defend you. Lo and behold, later in that day, the mother brought one of her puppies over to the young apprentice and laid it in his lap. The master then walked over to the puppy, grabbed the puppy by the head, and in front of the mother snapped its neck. He then looked at the young apprentice, who was in shock and horror, and said, "That is the ultimate form of submission. That dog will be every person that we meet." What the story really illustrates, and there's more to it and I've left a lot of it out, is that they have controlled this reptilian influence that has engineered and manipulated our human race, and has taken the most weak, vile, backstabbing, corruptible filth that humanity shit out of its collective ass, which are now all the members of the High Illuminati, because they were so weak and so willing. They were the first to offer up their children to appease these reptilian masters. They were the ones who were the weakest link in in all of humanity's chain. They exploited that and turned them into seemingly the strongest, because they knew that once you give them your children, you are forever theirs. They can do anything they want to you, because one, the children represent the very innocence of humanity. And if there are those in humanity that are willing to give up what is truly precious, what is truly the great source of our continuation, which are the children of promise. Each child that is born is a Christ child. Each child that is born holds within it the promise of a continuation of humanity. If you are willing to throw that away, if you are willing to throw that child into the mouth of a fanged reptile, then you have lost every connection to humanity that you have, and you are forever enslaved to the master unto whom you gave your children to. This is so fucking important because we are now moving into a society that has for so long unknowingly put their children up on the altars of the high Illuminati gods of war. They have given their children to the altar of the high Illuminati gods of education. Have you ever seen a lot of the pictures that they show of kids learning? They're all sitting around a wise old owl. The owl is teaching them. The owl in the Illuminati tradition, let's not go confusing the owl of other traditions, okay? This is the one thing the Christians and the really, really, really ignorant of the occult do. The owl doesn't express Molech in all traditions. The owl expresses Molech in the Illuminati tradition. And so if you want to destroy, if you want to attack the Illuminati, you have to attack the Illuminati tradition, not just every tradition. So stop your fucking stupidity. The owl teaches the children. The owl of the Illuminati. You are giving your children, you are circling them around the big owl named Molech, much like the Illuminati circles around the big stone owl named Molech. And then they butt fuck each other. What do they do to your kids? They're training you. They're training your children. They're training your children to train their children. This is the weak link in humanity that we should fight. That we should fight so hard that we die to protect. You want to talk about protecting Jesus, protecting Christ energy, that's your own kids. That's your own children. Every child born is the child of promise, is the Christ energy. You ever seen a baby? They're bundles of brilliant, almost glowing life energy. And what's the first thing they do? They rip it away from their mother. They give it a whole bunch of fluoride in their formula. They don't even let the mom breastfeed anymore. And then they prick its heel. They get its blood. Do you think they get rid of that blood? No, they store it. They keep it in a giant container. There's other ideas out there, but the one I know for absolute certain is for genetic patenting and cloning. So then you don't even own yourself. You don't own your physicality anymore. There's other things that they could be doing with it, but that's not important right now. That's not important. Keeping your egregore is one of them. Blood, well, I'll take it back. Homunculus is different than an egregore. Homunculus actually requires the fluid of the maker. Yeah, we'll go into that later. But it's truly pretty fucking horrid, honestly, from an occult standpoint. If you look at the entire military-industrial complex, the guys who run that are top level fucking black magicians. The blackest of the black magicians. They are the true bringers of death and pestilence and have no qualms about what they are doing or no illusions. And they keep the blood of your children on hand. How does that make you feel? How does that make you feel knowing that? I'm just curious. You know, out there it's like, oh, that's a great idea. No. I mean, seriously. I got one dude right now arguing with me that the mark of the beast is not your social security number. He can't for the life of him fucking tell me what it is. He has no understanding of higher Kabbalic knowledge. He doesn't get it. But the real truth is, the real scary horror of it all is the fact when you realize that you've already received the mark for the beast. You see, once you give them your children, like that mother dog did in a form of appeasement, you're no longer human to them. In fact, you weren't human before. Now that's just sort of validated everything. Once you give them your children, you're no longer human. You've lost your humanity fully. It is said in the Talmud, which is one filth, hate-ridden book, that the Goy, the Gentile, was formed like a human so that the Zionist wouldn't have to be served by beasts. Do you see what they're saying? They're saying the Zionist can have sex with you, can rape your wife, can molest your children. Apparently, a Zionist in the Talmud can have sex with a child at the age of 3, as long as it is a Goy child, because that child isn't technically human and has no rights. But, I mean, I really think it is because the Zionists have, universally extremely tiny dicks, and only a 3-year-old would be like, wow, it's kind of big. Rockefeller syndrome. But, so they're saying that it is by the blessing of their cursed, awful abominations of deities that Goys, who are not part of the Illuminati, who are not part of their chosen, who are not the Zionists, don't look like animals, because at least they don't have to be served by things that look like animals. They can be served by things that look human. You know what I'm saying? This is really what this is about. This is how they treat you. This is how they see you. And because our humanity has given up their most precious gifts and cargo to these fucking monsters, these fucking vicious, criminal scum whores, these worshippers of interdimensional reptile filth. This gives them that consent, that justification that they need to continue this horrid ritual act of enslavement. Because in the Illuminati, there is a deep mystery between master and slave. A almost religious-esque quality. And this religious-esque quality existed in a number of areas. It existed even in Germany for a while. It existed deep in Africa, okay, where there was a religion of slave takers. Okay? Now this came from the fact that those German and those African kings and queens willingly gave up their people to be taught this so-called secret knowledge. And they passed it on because now they had received that knowledge and would become the perfect slave for those reptilian masters. They pretend to give you wisdom. And it is wisdom to a degree. It's dark wisdom. It's wisdom that's tainted. It's wisdom that's poisoned. It's wisdom that corrupts the soul. It's the same thing when you gave your children to Christian monasteries and they raped your children because they were fighting off their own bizarre homosexual urges. Not that being a homosexual is bad. It's because they were taught that women were evil and women were the devil. And if you had sexual fantasies about women, you were weak. And so they went crazy because it's not part of the human psyche to feel bad about their sexuality. And so they targeted the weakest, most vulnerable things they could, and they raped them, and they told them to stay silent. And they passed that continuous horrid sickness down throughout the generations. It's infected us all. We need to begin to fight it. We need to begin to cleanse it. We need to begin to see our children as the most important fucking things that we have in this world and stop giving them to fucking snakes. Man! So, a little riled. I want you to really take that information in. I'm going to be back today with the video that I think is really going to help unite us. It's not necessarily part of the orders tradition, but it's part of my family tradition. And that's still a very valid tradition. And it's one further way that we can take this step into reclaiming and defending what is most precious to us. I'll be back.